Hi, everybody. Welcome to the WitchFoot podcast. Hi guys, welcome to the WitchFoot podcast. This is the first time we're going to be probably putting our video recording of our podcast on YouTube. So if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, mosey on over to YouTube. Check it out.
Look at our beautiful faces.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about our final polarity on the zodiac. Andrea, what is it?
Virgo Pisces.
Is this the best polarity? Virgo would say it is. Virgo would say it.
I can't say yes because I only have a placement in one of the two, and that would leave me feeling bereft.
Virgo would also like your use of the word bereft. So, no, today we're talking about Virgo Pisces, and this is the polarity of divinity, is what we have labeled it. So divinity specifically, by definition, talks about religion, spirituality, God, goddess, all of those sorts of things. We kind of couch it more in the idea of being closest to whatever that universal spiritual source is. So whatever that is for you, whatever you call it, whatever religion, whatever belief system you use to define it, it is that sense of how we are all connected, we are all part of it, and not just people. So animals, the earth, the systems that we use. So in addition to divinity, it's not just spirituality. We're also speaking to things about connections, harmony, potential, fulfillment, purpose. So all of those things that go along with divinity, not just godliness, spirituality, but all the things related that we can embody or think about that kind of feed into that concept of divinity.
Yes. I think it's the holiness of what is, and then the holiness of what we can rightly maintain in this world. And that's the balance that Virgo and Pisces are trying to strike. Things just are perfect, and yet we're here and we're very capable. And in that capacity, we should also be adding to the divine order and beauty of the universe.
Beauty, perfection, order. Again, more words that we could have used, but we landed on divinity to kind of encapsulate it all. We're first going to talk about the elements. So this is earth and water. Again, earth and water, super duper chill. These are our mutable earth and water pair. So perhaps the chillest of them all.
Really?
Earth, I guess we can just start with Earth. I think we've said it before with Taurus and Capricorn, but the first thing that we think about when we think about the element of Earth is literally how the Earth behaves and responds, in that sense of being stable, consistent, taking on, not really doing a lot of complaining and putting things out there, but just kind of taking and giving, taking as far as not taking things from people, but taking on what people are doing.
Right, receiving and being receptive.
Yeah, that's a better word.
Yeah.
And then giving. They have no problem. Earth Virgo has no problem doing things for other people, serving, giving of their resources.
I'm about to serve my coworker, Joel. I'm going to let him in the room. He's growling at me.
Delicious. Yes, maybe this episode, I don't know if we'll see both of our dogs appear, but we'll talk a little bit later in the episode, I think, about Virgo and Earth being related to animals as well.
All right. Sorry, I had to jet.
Oh, that's all right.
My puppers
Hi, Joel.
really wanted to get in on this Virgo Pisces action. Serve me.
Yes, right. So yeah, but both Virgo and Pisces are receptive. I would say Virgo with the earth, they are receptive in the sense that they have a lot of physical resources, energy, material things that they are able to um, create and provide to other people. And just like the earth, they're not really, you should be giving things in return, but they're not necessarily going to ask you for it right away, hold you to it, or expect it right away. They're going to give.
Right. Earth, productive, always. And productive, not necessarily in the sense of accomplishing tasks, although, of course, they do that as well, but productive in the sense of being able to produce from themselves something beautiful and new and unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then water with Pisces. We've talked about Cancer being the river, Scorpio being both the spicy water and the deep Marianas Trench water, right? Because they have multiple winds. I have always viewed Pisces as the ocean. Just it's vast. It's mostly
life-giving,
yes,
unifying.
Also overwhelming, potentially very destructive.
Like a mirror to us all, right? Like the percentage of water in our bodies, the percentage of earth that is made up of water, like
so necessary. But so it's you're pulled to it. It's beautiful, it's majestic, but you also recognize the power and the potential that's there.
Get lost.
Yeah. Lost at sea, I think, is something that if you have very strong Pisces placements, that's instantly relatable. And I think too, the earth and water, again, we talk about these relationships that are naturally compatible. Earth and water are definitely that. They're chill because yes, they're going to have an effect on each other, right? Earth is going to change the direction of water or be a container for water. Water is going to erode earth, but it's also going to be the thing that when combined gives life. It's a very chill, as opposed to the fire and air is a little bit more, reactive.
Yes.
But
Yeah, I would say
positive.
that water and earth are more like a nourishing duo.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Grounding and feeling,
Yep.
as opposed to doing and thinking. You may recognize whether you're with, I feel this way. I can kind of tell more so like, oh, this person is heavy Taurus, or heavy Aquarius. I can more so tell, okay, this person has a lot of earth. Like their element is more apparent in their personality. Our rulers here are again my two favorite planets because they're so cool the way that they pair up compared to the other planets. Mercury and Jupiter. These are the same rulers that we had for Gemini and Sagittarius. And this is significant, like we said in that episode, because Mercury and Jupiter only ruled immutable planets. All of the other planets and luminaries rule both cardinal and fixed signs. So
yeah. So they form the mutable cross, which means that Jupiter and Mercury are their ruling signs. The signs they rule are either in an opposition relationship or a square.
Interesting. And it makes sense. I really do feel like you could look at it as Mercury is small and Jupiter big. Mercury close, Jupiter expansive. But I do think also, Mercury and Jupiter both have the capacity for a lot. Like just because Mercury focuses on the detail and the pieces that form the whole, it's still very concerned with the whole. I think the biggest difference to me is Mercury is very concerned with processing, communicating those components, and really kind of the explanation of things.
Yes.
Whereas Jupiter, they don't really need to, Jupiter doesn't need to explain itself. Jupiter's fucking here, doing shit, having fun. Like it doesn't.
I don't know why this came to mind. I've never thought of this before with Mercury and Jupiter, but I was like, Mercury is the one like tediously finding Waldo in the Where's Waldo, and Jupiter's like, he's definitely on that page. Next.
That's right. And they're both technically the truth, right? Like they found it. That's a great example. So Mercury with Gemini, we talked about in the previous episode. I do think with Virgo, you see more of this emphasis on rather than just trying to take in as much information as possible and learn all the things, and just being unable to not see everything, right? This is probably the third time we're going to use that Princess Nokia lyric. Like, my mind, things come into my mind, I just entertain it. Like, I cannot turn off the filtering system. It's all coming in.
Right.
I think that's true of Virgo, but the focus is more on, okay, everything's coming in. Now, what do I do with it? So there's this emphasis on making things more efficient, improving processes. Virgo gets a rap for being a critical perfectionist, but I really feel like it's because their Virgo Mercury cannot help but see the potential, again, divinity, the potential of a system, a room, a person, their appearance, and understanding how to take it from what it is to the ideal of what it could be, and all those steps along the way.
Right. Because when Mercury rules Gemini, it's taking in for the purpose of taking in. The more you absorb, the more you absorb. That's exciting. There's new vistas to explore, and there's always something else you could understand. Virgo has that capacity and yet has this drive to put it to use and to put it to purpose. And because it's on the divinity spectrum, that purpose is the grace and beauty and divine nature of all things. So of course, Virgo is going to comment on how much more beautiful this room would be if you just picked up that corner and moved this over there.
I think that's why you see more, the Gemini focus is more information technology, things of that nature, knowledge. It's paired with Sag. Virgo is aesthetic and organization, efficiency, because those are the ideals. Once I have that information, what's the best use of it? Yeah, I'm not going to say which one I like more, but there's definitely a difference when you look at a Gemini Mercury, a Virgo Mercury. And I think that's also significant. Yeah, when you factor in, Gemini and Virgo square each other. So there's a big difference. Even though they're both, you will find that they're both very intelligent, intellectual type, right? Thinking, processing, articulate, interesting. And I think too, like Gemini bores easily, right? Like they need to constantly be stimulated.
Right.
And I think Virgo wishes they could be bored. Like, please let me just relax and do nothing. They wish they could turn it off.
Well, I think that's brilliant, because what you made me realize was that, okay, so Virgo, that earth side of Mercury's abilities. So as things come in, they're embodying them. Of course she has filters. Of course she does it. Like, of course she has to stop at some point. Like, of course there's overwhelm. She's taking them in, not in here, but in here. Like her entire beingness is becoming in tune with those new ideas, those new thoughts, those new inquiries. That's a lot for anybody. Bless you, Virgo heavy people out there.
Bless you. And, Virgo heavy, Mercury Virgo people, Mercury in the sixth house people, because that's the house that Virgo rules. Bless you all. And every time people tell you you're overthinking it, you're paying too much attention to detail, you might be, but also remember that they are lucky that they don't have to deal with your mind like you do.
And they are benefiting from your ability to do said things.
That's exactly right. I Jupiter is the next one. Jupiter with Pisces. Now, traditional rulership, we use Jupiter with Pisces. It's also connected. Pisces is also connected with Neptune, but Jupiter works, so why make it more complicated?
I think it can be fun to play with Neptunian ideas of dream and fog and mist, and like the way that that kind of embodies some of Pisces' ethereal qualities. But at the end of the day, Jupiter's drive for expansion and inclusion and giving, I think also really embodies the Piscean spirit.
It tells the fuller story, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always like Jupiter expansion. I think that's the best word for me with Jupiter when I'm thinking of it. I always caution that it's expansion of gifts and luck as well as challenges. There's always that caution that yes, Jupiter is going to make you grow, but it depends on you, your life, your other placements, the situation, whether that growth is going to be joyful or painful, challenging. Like,
So if Mercury's taking a magnifying glass to the details, Jupiter is putting a megaphone on everything. So like everything that was happening is now happening, but in triplicate, or it's just, so as it passes through your chart, Jupiter transits are a little bit hard to miss. If you feel like there's a lot of big energy or a lot of things that were kind of lying dormant, bubbling up, and it just seems like, where is this all coming from? You may, in fact, be dealing with a Jupiter transit.
yeah, you definitely feel Jupiter transits. There's no doubt. And I would also say there's things like, for example, in my own chart, Jupiter's not conjunct my North Node, it's close, but it's in the same sign, it's in the same house. And so your North Node speaks to your purpose, but also kind of what you should be striving toward and what might feel like a little bit outside of your comfort zone. So for me, having Jupiter there, that's helpful, of course. But of course, I'm also like, but like it's not always fun. Like it's hard because it's also part of what's not in my comfort zone. Whereas, you know, if Jupiter were in my first house or Jupiter were with my South Node, I might feel like, woo, like that's a party. Or in a different house, like it's in my eighth. Ow. Although that's, you know, some people consider that a lucky placement. If Jupiter in my fifth, or if Jupiter were in my fifth, right, I'd be feeling like, yeah, party vibe. It's
And a little lost at sea. It's in Pisces for me.
Yes.
So like,
Yeah,
party on the yacht in the middle of the sea. Where are we going?
where are we going?
Where
Ignore the storm coming. But see, even then, it can serve. This is also part of Jupiter. It also rules Sagittarius, where if you're not mindful, it's very easy to get swept away with Jupiter energy, and that's true of Pisces as well. And I think this Jupiter's influence is, I think, more so than what people ascribe to Neptune, is where you see some of these, especially famous Pisces, who have struggled with, I want to be really careful how I say this because I don't want to like typecast anyone, but I am thinking specifically of two people, Kurt Cobain and Johnny Cash, famous Piscean people who struggled with their own Jupiter nature and their own big emotions and ability or inability to connect with people on that level. Feeling lost at sea, and the way that they turn to drugs to numb. And we talked about this a little bit with Sagittarius Jupiter, of it's kind of this feeling of I want to feel a lot of things. Like Jim Morrison said, like the in-between is useless. I want the highs, I want the lows. But really, I just want the highs, like the big highs. And so I think the same kind of thing is true with Pisces. You're in a water sign, so this speaks more to our emotional environment, our feelings, our inner nature, our spirituality. So they're craving those type of high experiences. And so when you're being crushed by life, or you're like you're going through life, you are going to have depressing experiences. And for someone who's very heavy in Pisces or Jupiter energy, it's going to be very tempting to turn to things that will kind of take the edge off the lower moments. As you're being pulled to, let's expand in that other way. We don't like this way.
We talked about it in the Gem Sag episode, but Jupiter is the last planet before we get to the planet senior of boundaries, Saturn. And so we have not yet encountered boundaries by the time we're hitting Jupiter. And the way that I see that manifesting, and we've kind of hinted at it with the metaphor of Cancer, the river, and Pisces, the ocean. Rivers have borders, rivers have direction, rivers are confined. They can overflow, certainly, but that's the exception, not the rule. Right. Whereas if you have a Piscean moment or a Piscean emotion, or something happens to you and you're Pisces, it's what's grabbing the reins. It's going to touch every aspect of who you are, every moment, every idea, everything is now tinged with whatever this thing is. That's the bigness too. And so that can be incredibly overwhelming and can totally make you feel like you're floundering. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But at its highest, what Jupiter is able to do with that bigness is bring what is traditionally unconscious. So this deep sense and yearning for unity, this deep want for belonging and togetherness, and it can expand that, and it can bring it into conscious reality, which in other words would be called enlightenment.
Mm-hmm. I think I also said enlightenment, divinity. Again, here we are. I think I also mentioned this with Gemini about how Gemini Mars is one of my favorite placements. Pisces Mars is another one because of what you just said. The Jupiter effect on Pisces is this expanding the belongingness with everyone. And I love Pisces placements in general, but specifically Pisces Mars. I see this desire to really want to bring everyone to the table. You see Pisces in general described as okay, these are the people with a really eclectic friend group, right? They love all different kinds of people because they see the most in everyone. It's expansive. You don't need to be a specific thing. That Prince song, right? You don't have to be beautiful to be right? That's a very Pisces anthem, right? They really don't care. Just love me. Just see me and love me. That's it. So when I see Pisces Mars, that's someone whose active energy, desire, motivation is toward bringing everyone in. Those are the people who should be president. Those are the people who should be ruling the world. Not all Pisces placements. It can be Pisces is also. We haven't even got to stereotypes. It can be real diplomatic energy. Not all Pisces should be politicians. But Pisces Mars, if you've got that, you're a special cat, and I love you. From me to you. Mwah. Yeah, so I had written down too with Pisces and Jupiter, it does kind of give them this, I think people who aren't heavy in Pisces just kind of look at them like this ethereal weirdo, larger than life, but in a spiritual kind of way. I don't know that he is, but we recently talked about the dude from the Big Lebowski, probably a Pisces or an Aquarius. They're spiritual and doing their own Zen thing, and it's not that they don't care, but they can't help but just do it in their own big way. And you're gonna see it.
Yeah, there's this aloofness, right? And it can be mistaken for not apathy, but just kind of absent-mindedness.
I've been accused of this.
Okay, but
Apathy.
it's, imagine that Jupiter is seeing the whole picture, and then somebody runs into you and says, "Oh my God, we can't get the printer to start." And you're like, "What does that matter in this sea of things that are amazing and wonderful?" And like, I'm sorry, can you explain to me why I care?
Yep. I mean, honestly, this is a majority of the debates that I've ever had with people is just prove to me why I should care about that. Like, right? And I think this is also true of Virgo though, because
Yep.
they're not seeing the big picture as easily as Pisces. They're more in the detail, but they have so prioritized all of the details. They know what the top priority is. So like convince me to care about something that isn't the most important thing. You can't. Like I'm out here trying to figure out the meaning of life. I know that I'm gonna die someday. Convince me that like attending that my favorite example is when I went to college and I'm like, okay. I'm paying so much money to be here. I'm doing this so that I can get a good job. And because like kind of I have to, right? Like that was the feeling back then. Like we have
Oh,
to.
you like eating and living indoors?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were doing the things to get
Yeah.
there? Yeah.
Yeah, I was checking the boxes. And like the first, it's like, okay, but like you have to go to all these seminars and workshops and like you have to have like we had like these little punch cards and it had to like all be punched and like if you didn't attend all the little meetings then you didn't get preferential housing the next year. And I was like, okay, I'm paying to be here, and you want me to go to meetings about what, like how not to get raped at like I got that. I'm not going to the frats. Done. Why do I have to be there for
How
2
to be a
hours?
good roomie.
Yeah, I have to go to a seminar about not drinking. I don't drink. Got it. I do now, but I didn't then, right? Because I was 18 and I
Right.
wasn't okay. So like just convince me that I should care. And they're like, well, you're not going to get preferential housing next year. And I was like, okay, I already know this house. So I guess I'll be fine. Like I'm not you cannot make me go to something that's stupid. Um I tried to convince other people to rebel with me, right? They wouldn't. I was
You're
alone. I was
reframing
like,
my college experience because now I'm thinking about storming into the chair's office and telling him that his classes that I was required to take were stupid and that I didn't need them for my major. And now I'm like, oh, that might be Sag third house, Pisces six. Like just being like, convince me I care.
well, and then if you combine Virgo placements, Virgo energy with it, like I'm not even just going to give you the big, like, this is not even important in the grand scheme of life. I'm going to give you the 10-point PowerPoint presentation, like deconstructing your argument. Like, I'm just going to exhaust you until you are like, just leave me alone. Do whatever you want. Yeah. Uh, Pisces are making big connections. And you just let them do their thing.
Virgos know what matter. Good on you guys.
They know what matters. Here's a revolutionary idea. Listen to the weirdos. There's a thought. I guess the lesson is there, whether it's Virgo or Pisces, this is the way we've always done it, is never going to be the argument that seals the deal for them. You're going to have to do more than that.
Yeah, you might want some charts and graphs. Just saying.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Planets, modality. So we talked a little bit at the top of the mutable cross. Pisces, Virgo, similar to Gemini, Sag, mutable signs. This means we are receptive, a little bit more hesitant. Like this is probably why I like Andrea asked me a question for a 2 topics episode, and I'm like, oh my god, give me like 10 minutes to really like. I need time to really think and react. It's harder to make a decision and go with it because you need a lot more information to respond to when you're mutable heavy.
Yeah, mutability. So the emphasis there is on receiving. So we've got cardinal, which is an output primarily. We've got fixed, which is kind of balancing the two, taking in, putting out. And then we've got the mutable signs, which are kind of heavily balanced towards that receptivity. And for good reason, because in the mutable space is where we fine tune, refine, and sometimes just wholesale abandon a process that is past its prime, that no longer serves us in the way it once did.
Yeah. Processing, perfection, refinement. Yeah. You can't do that at the beginning of a project.
No,
At the final
right.
stages.
It takes learning, it takes review, it takes analysis. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is where this is where astrology in the workplace can be helpful. If you have someone Virgo Pisces heavy on your team, they are going to shine further along in the process. That doesn't mean don't include them in the brainstorming and the other bits, but they are going to be your people proofreading. And, once everything gets to a certain point, they are going to be the one doing the finishing touches and deploying it to everybody else. And they're going to be damn good at it.
Yes, because what they're excellent at is catching a vibe. Like they just understand where things are kind of headed, and they can receive those threads and then weave them together to perfection in a divine way. And so where you're seeing that in Virgo, that Virgo mutability, to me, it's this elasticity and this ability to reinvent the self and refine the self. And again, that's where we see a lot of the beauty and aesthetic stereotypes coming into Virgo, is because of their ability to continually refine their beingness, their embodied self.
Mhm. And that's the other thing too. Pisces and Virgo, I don't know that I can say that they're the most aesthetic energies, but I do think that they're the most maybe in touch with how they're being received. They're the most in touch with other people's preferences and feelings. And so they are able to communicate to people or present things to people in a way that's tailored to that person. And that's really special. It's more teacher, mentor energy. Um, I keep wanting to be like Beyonce, say like Beyonce, but
A Virgo.
right, yeah. But yeah, they have a way of being able to understand the other, and especially with Pisces, you see the merging with them, their ability to read someone's, not read, because it's not something they do intentionally or they're thinking about it. They're just out there absorbing vibes and setting vibes. Whereas Virgo just understands all of the components that are happening so well that they're able to explain things so thoroughly that, like, you're never going to have a question when they're showing you something that they can't address or find the answer to. And they're going to take the time to explain it to you because that's what they would want. They're going to take the time to break it down step by step and teach you. And yeah, you just don't get that with every energy. It's real nice.
Oh. No, you don't. So how do you see, so I kind of described how I've been viewing the Virgo mutability. How do you see the Pisces mutability? Like, what are they taking in and refining? The vibe, the energy,
the vibe, and I think the feeling of a situation. So like, again, if Pisces is this is important too. Pisces is the end of the zodiac, right? So if we're looking at the wheel as Aries kind of kicks things off, springtime, renewal, life, things being born, Pisces is the extreme other end of that. The end of winter, everything is dead. And is about, right? But like, it's necessary for new things to be born. So it's also this understanding that, like, yeah, death is icky and weird and uncomfortable, but like very necessary and literally held at the same weight as birth. Death, birth, same. So nothing really, they're absorbing the vibe, the information, the feelings, but then they're also kind of weighing it as, what does this moment need to bring it into harmony? I really feel like if Virgo is a perfectionist, you know, making this room perfect, bringing it to its best functionality, organizing this closet so that it's as functional as possible, refining this system or this work process until it's as efficient as possible. Pisces is trying to bring things into just perfect harmony and from a feeling place. So they're, I think, the mediators, the peacemakers, and if it's not going to be peace, if you are only going to bring war, peace out. Right? They're gonna get out of Dodge. They're gonna run away. Um, there are some stereotypes of Pisces being really flighty and wishy-washy, and I think some of that is just because it's not so much them, like it's maybe the other person, like the other person is bringing really harsh, ugly me, and like Pisces understands, there's nothing I can do in this situation other than being hurt myself. So unlike Scorpio, who's like, no, I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna, or Cancer, who might be like, um, there's enough reason for me to stay in this situation, protect this person. Like Pisces, I think, is just, this is not where the vibe is at, and it's not worth it. Like in the grand scheme of my life in general, this just isn't worth it. So peace. Thank you. Next.
Thank you. Next, thank you. Next, thank you.
Right. Yeah. When you see the big picture, you can see how inconsequential some of the unnecessary negativity, right? You're just extending and reproducing and expanding negativity for the sake of it. There's no there. We're not going somewhere with this. We're not going to land on the same page or feel more united at the end of this.
Mm-hmm. But they will stick with things if that potential's there, right? You know?
Absolutely. And they're the most likely to see that potential.
Mm-hmm. No. So this is also, okay, 6th house and 12th house is what we're also dealing with. Virgo is the ruler of the 6th house. Pisces and Jupiter, ruler of the 12th house. So as we talk about these, in your own birth chart, whatever signs or placements are in your 6th or your 12th, those energies would also reflect how you approach these areas of your life. So for 6th house, I always look at that kind of the way that you take care of yourself, your body, the way that you serve other people, and just in general, your sense of service. And then also, we talk a lot about service, but there is also a sense of autonomy with Virgo. I do want to bring up the virgin stereotype at the end. We'll get into that a little bit more. But I do think Virgo desires to be, they want to be independent beyond reproach. They're perfectionists because they don't want other people telling them what to do. They already know what they need to do. Don't tell them. So your 6th house kind of speaks to this. How do you go about making your own way? Where do you feel confident that like you're an expert in this area?
Yeah. And what steps are you willing to take to walk that path? Because Virgo is very much about the daily things we can do, the small tasks that become something gigantic when they add up together. I think we've noted this in a previous Earth Water episode, but both fire and water in the traditional zodiac starting at Aries progress from cardinal to fixed to mutable in the way that we kind of think of them traditionally. Earth does not. And so Earth, you're starting with fixed at Taurus, you're moving to mutable with Virgo, and then you end on cardinal with Capricorn, which is just the wildest transition, I think, through the zodiac, but I love it so much. And so Taurus has defined for us what is worth fighting for and what matters. And then Virgo is helping to create the systems and the daily tasks that will move us in that direction so that we can have a Capricornian legacy at the end.
I like that. Yeah, so kind of that 2, 6, 10 trine, and how those three houses are working together to sort of form your routines, your work, the way the pudding and the proof.
What matters and what is matter, right? These are earth houses. And so the literal substance of what makes these things up. And Virgo excels at that. And the sixth house really embodies this daily commitment to self and others. It's the sixth house and the 12th house are both transition points. So at the sixth house, you're transitioning out of 1 through 6, which are kind of the self-oriented houses. So we're coming from Leo, which is about self-expression, and the fifth house, which is all about creativity as a way of birthing yourself into the world. And Virgo is starting to integrate what that looks like when it comes into contact with others, and how our self-creation and self-expression can benefit others and be used in advantage of others. And then we move all the way over to the 12th house, which Wendy kind of hinted at, last house of the zodiac. And at that point, we ideally are bringing all the unconscious conscious, and we are kind of both ending and beginning this alpha and omega energy of everything that could be, for what? So that we can start fresh at the first house again. It's kind of like this crescendo so that we can, like have it's beautiful. Both of those houses mark such significant places in our development of consciousness.
How much bigger could Jupiter get in the 12th house? I mean, yeah, I kind of categorize the 12th as sort of like your hidden inner knowledge. And I also look to it, if it's Pisces house, we talk a lot about Pisces merging. We can't forget that it's the two fish swimming in opposite directions all the time, but also circular, also unified. The connections that they make, the way that Pisces has this high level perspective of everything. I like to call Pisces like CEO energy. Like Pisces cannot get into the nitty gritty. Pisces is not pulling up Excel and working on a spreadsheet like Virgo is. Pisces is, I see all of the operations in the world. I know what they all mean. I know how they all work together. I know that if this happens, this is what the butterfly effect will be. I can see it all. So this is what needs to happen, and this is who is best suited for doing it. So they're like the CEOs of fucking life. I don't know.
Like, the CEOs of consciousness. No, I'll take it.
Yes. So I think merging is part of that, because how do you really do that without having a very intimate understanding, or impression at least, of other people's emotional environments, other people's motivations, desires, thought process, the content of their being and spirit, the ability to say, this is a good person or a bad person, this person means good for me or doesn't, or means well or doesn't for me, this person is lying or they aren't. So I also think your 12th house, the signs, the placements, it is a tricky house. But I think it also speaks to how you attempt to maybe read or merge with other people or your environment. Like the way that you try to not present yourself, but the way that you try to form those connections for that greater understanding with other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the parallel to the sixth house emphasis on health and the daily doable tasks that we can create to move us forward is that the 12th house can sometimes be self-abandonment and the ways that we exhaust ourselves or overwhelm ourselves without realizing it. It's kind of this place where the energy can get trapped and we don't even realize it's trapped there. So we aren't looking to that house for answers on how to free ourselves. But that is both the house of imprisonment and freedom. So it's absolutely the key to your ultimate expansion. Whoever rules that house is probably sending you big messages, but they may be in dreams. They may be these little small hunches that you get. Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, just topically, if people are looking for advice on how do I stick to, an exercise routine, or how do I have better work-life balance? How do I have a better routine? the sixth house is where I look for them to try to answer those questions. And then if people are really struggling with being blindsided by their feelings or like recurring patterns that they just can't crack, I'm going 12th house because, you know, imprisonment, repression. And then I also kind of caution people about the time of year based on the sign of your 12th house. You think about when the sun, you know, say for example, let's say your 12th house is in Pisces. So you're going to, the time of year when the sun is in Pisces, illuminating your 12th house, that might be a more difficult year or time of year for you, only because it's illuminating those things that you either intentionally keep hidden or maybe are a little bit hidden even from yourself, that you don't, you know, your subconscious thoughts and feelings. But not just when the sun is there, it could be other planets when they go through there. Just again, depending on your birth chart, could really pose challenges. So yeah, caution, 12th house seasons are, it's Jupiter ruled, it's big.
Yeah. And I will say that for me, actually harnessing my health really came from understanding and appreciating the gifts of my 12th house and bringing, so I was actually over focusing on the 6th, getting no results and getting really frustrated. And then when I leaned more into my 12th so that there was a balance between that polarity, suddenly all the fruits of what I had thought I was doing quite well arrived.
Amazing. Who would have thought that focusing on the whole pole instead of just one half of it? Who knew?
Who knew?
Stereotypes. Do you want to talk about stereotypes?
Yeah, one of the things that Wendy let me in on, because Virgo is my 12th house, so she be hiding from me most of the time, is that Virgos are often chalked up as being color-coded spreadsheets, the most organized person you'll ever meet, just like endlessly tidy. But Virgo's true gift is knowing what's essential, knowing what's vital. And so if she doesn't think that X, Y, or Z is part of the big picture, she's not organizing that. She's not working on that. She's not touching that. And so in order to bring all of this amazing, exquisite detail to parts of life, other parts of life have to be let go. And there can be this, so there actually can be this shameful messiness to Virgos because they're aware that organizing those pieces of life, whether it be their desk, their bedroom, whatever it is, their closet, whatever it is for them, they know that that matters to other people. They're very in tune with how other people perceive that. And so it might bring some inner shame and turmoil. So if you're a Virgo heavy person and you feel like you have totally missed the boat on that organization, fear not, friend. You probably just identified that there are much better uses of your time.
Yeah, I would be shocked. I have yet to, and I know a lot of Virgo heavy people throughout my life, and I have myself, I'm a Virgo rising. There's not a single one who doesn't have, I mean, there are ways that they are meticulous, organized, efficient, and there's a mess somewhere that you don't know about. They might not be presenting it to you depending on how much they care. For example, my husband's a Virgo moon. So his Virgo-ness is not as concerned with the outward aesthetics of things. So he's more meticulous and organized in private. Me, it's all the presentation. My parents would get on me all the time, like, how come we get all these notes from school about how, like in elementary school, like your desk is the most organized, your handwriting is so neat, everything's perfect at school. You're like the perfect little A plus, everything together student, and your room is a fucking disaster. And I'm like, well, because like I don't care about this place. Like I hate it here. Right? So like, and so it changes now. My house is really well organized because I love where I live. So like it can change throughout your lifetime. But every Virgo has a secret mess. Don't get it twisted. Don't let that, I mean, don't out them. They'll argue with you. They'll never admit it. But like if you find it, just, you know, you found it.
have to balance, while we're talking Virgo, we have to balance your excellent mention of Jeff Bridges and the Big Lebowski with Walter. And the truly Virgo nature of, am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Does anybody give a fuck about the rules?
One of the yes, rule following, rigid containers for things, and just if you truly double triple down on Virgo energy, it can be this commanding criticism and this commanding control over life. So Walter's an extreme version of that from the Big Lebowski, but if you need to laugh at yourself a little bit, Virgos, high key recommend John Goodman's performance.
I can't recommend the Big Lebowski just enough. Oh geez. Other Virgo stereotypes. I don't know if these are necessarily wrong. Incorrect. I do have the perfectionist. But again, I think it's that it's not that they have to be perfect, but they see the potential and the ideal version of everyone and everything. So like, imagine if you looked, it's very, okay. Imagine if you looked at the room and the first thing you saw was the ways it could be better. Like it's not a bad thing necessarily, but it can be very easy to be extremely bothered by the fact that no one else cares as much. Nobody else gives a fuck about the rules. Walter, nobody cares as much to have done it in the first. I've had this, right? Like, you know, I'm organizing stuff at the end of the night, clearing stuff up, and I'm like, why is it only me? Doesn't anybody, what? But then like the reverse is, other people are like, why are you such a psychopath about like closing up for the night?
Yes.
But it's because like you can't, the idea that I have seen the potential and the ideal, I have to physically make it happen. It's an urge. And it's perfection, but it's my brain. It's not actual real perfection, reality. It's that ideal and the bar that I've set myself. So the advice that we always give, I feel like, to Virgo heavy people is like, sometimes lower the goddamn bar.
For everybody. Everybody. Yeah, because it can have this martyr effect. Is very Virgonian, and because we've talked about service, right? But service that isn't asked for, aka completing a large variety of tasks that no one asked you to do or expected you to do, out of service to them, and then resenting the lack of reciprocity, other people are entirely missing the message because they didn't ask you to do it. So they don't even feel like they're a part of what it is that you, they don't feel any connection to what you just painstakingly accomplished on their behalf. And so they're also very confused when there's upset over how they haven't returned that same level of service and reciprocity, which you never asked for, you being the Virgo heavy people. And so like there can definitely be seeds of that going on. And I think what Virgos excel at with the perfection is the perfection of utility. So of course that's going to come across as beauty in a lot of cases, because simplicity is beautiful. We write, like, we're all gaga over like the, I forget, is it like the Nordic style or whatever of decor where it's just like, oh no, the Zen, this where there's like one thing on a shelf, right? Like and of course that there's an inherent beauty to that, but Virgos are perfecting the function of things so that things can be used and used well. And so, yeah, just make sure that you're putting yourself to the best use. Like, make sure that tomorrow you'll be able to get out of bed because you're not too tired from serving everybody else.
Yeah. So it's like making sure that if you feel like people aren't appreciating the effort that you're putting in, like you're not getting a return on your investment, essentially, communicate that. And you're going to find one of two things. Either that person is really appreciative and they're not expressing it and they can express it more, or they're not aware that you're doing it because it doesn't matter to them and they didn't ask for it. So now, next step is not badgering them until it's important to them. They just told you it wasn't important. So now you have to decide, am I doing this really for my pleasure, or am I doing it for the congratulations and the gratitude? if you're doing it for yourself, fine, keep doing it. But if you were only doing it for because you thought it was good and helpful for other people and they don't even care, permission to stop. Stop the resentment train, hit the brakes. That's not going to get you anywhere except possibly violence. Just quit. So yeah, I have neat freak written down, but I've also seen a lot of places too where it talks about Virgos being freaky. I'm not going to comment on that personally because, you know,
I will.
I do see truth to it.
And there sort of has to be, because one of the unstereotyped things that, again, Wendy pointed out to me about Pisces, the opposite side, is that people underappreciate how sexual Pisces can be. Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of musical artists, for example, with heavy Pisces placements end up having incredibly erotic music, music that has all this feeling of like, that literally gives you the sensation of like, ooh, like this is steamy, this is taking me places. And so it only makes sense that while Virgo may keep that very deep under the hood, it's there somewhere.
Yeah, and if you're trying to get into a Virgo's pants, I don't know, do the dishes. Like that. Serve
time where they don't have to be doing other things. Yeah.
Serve them, and if you want extra points, you want to get in their pants more than once. Notice all the shit they do and thank them for it. Ooh, right? I also have on here tummy troubles. I don't have any other sign. I cannot pinpoint a specific malady, but if you have a strong Virgo placement, tell me about your indigestion, IBS, just all of it.
The specific foods you need to eat and in what order, so that your body operates in the way you need it to operate.
Tell me about how you can only eat after you smoke weed. Like, that's the only way your stomach will receive food. There's a lot of things. I could pull my psychological background and talk about the stress hormones, like all the different things that Virgo, the biological reasons. But just to suffice to say, if you're Virgo heavy, Virgo prominent, and you have tummy problems, just be good to your tummy. Just be good to your tummy. It's for real. It's not a stereotype. I'm sorry. And nobody knows how strong we're being out there. We're so strong, showing up with all our tummy troubles every day. And there's not enough emergency bathrooms in the world. I'm so sorry for all the weird places we've shit. Like, it's...
We forgive you.
Tummy troubles. I have animal lover here as well, but lover in quotations, because Andrea, you just dropped an amazing point on this yesterday, and I want you to share it. Do you remember?
Yeah. So what I've seen in my Virgo peeps isn't necessarily that they love animals in the sense of like, oh my God, and using baby voices and wanting to touch everything and like having herds of animals in their home. I mean, for goodness sakes, what a mess. No, what I've seen is that Virgos have this insanely intuitive sense of where an animal fits in the hierarchy. And because of that, animals are so comfortable around them. Because if you think about dog is such a common one where they want to know their place in the pack order. And a Virgo is going to be able to give them exactly that, because a Virgo's not taking the puppy in the purse, because that's not where a puppy belongs. Okay. And so a dog is going to feel incredibly at ease around a Virgonian person, because they're going to know exactly what's expected of them and how and when they need to do it. And that is beauty incarnate. That speaks to the original reason that animals were lumped in with Virgo in the 6th house, is because animals used to be prime vehicles of service and our jobs, right? When we had like oxen pulling carts and like all horses as our means of transportation. And that's where this comes from. And I think Virgos understand the utility and the hierarchy of animals. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I do see my daughter. She is a Virgo, Mars, and Venus. They might be conjunct. That's a whole thing. But I do see in her more now, and I would attribute this more to the Virgo Mars, a desire to really want to take care of animals, right? Like wanting to work at a zoo, clean up after, do the chores relative to animals.
The stellium is in her second, right? The valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So depending on where this lands for you guys, you will see it manifesting in that way. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mostly think animals are gross. I don't want to take care of them. They're cute from a distance. I'm a cat person, but you're right. It's more, I get upset with, if it is more of that animals are animals, and we need to treat them appropriately and ethically. I don't want to be the person cleaning up their shit and taking them for a walk every day. But like, I want them to all be properly, I don't want them to be in cages treated inhuman. I want them to be able to exist in harmony with us.
Right, of course, because you're on the divinity spectrum, and so you understand their place in it all.
Yeah, everybody's got a place.
Yeah.
You gotta like your place. It's not my fault. It's your place. And then, okay, so the Virgin. This is, I always like to talk about this with Virgo. The symbol for Virgo is the Virgin. Our disgusting society has perverted that so much. Goodbye to everything you think about virginity. Okay, it does not mean abstaining from sexual activity. That's something that the Christian church did to the virgin concept, and it's incorrect. The original virgin symbology associated with Virgo, and actually also with our good friend Artemis, the goddess, has to do strictly with autonomy. So I'm being a virgin in the sense of not pure and chaste, but not owned by anyone but yourself. You can't be someone else's property. So do what you want, but you're still always your own person. You cannot be bought, sold, owned, anything like that. It's
Woman unto herself. They used to maintain the sacred temples to the goddess, and so in that sense, their service was oriented to something so divine and so larger than themselves that what could you possibly interest them in? Like it's this sense of knowing exactly who they are, what they want, and what they need, and owning it.
So do it. Let's all be virgins.
You're there.
In the real sense of the word. Pisces stereotypes. The very first one that I put, again, we talk about this every time. Again, we live in a society. So it's a water sign. We're going to associate it with women, femininity. So they cry a lot. They're sensitive. Ew. I will agree that Pisces energy is sensitive, but sensitive in the way that, like, if you're feeling something and I'm in a room with you, I'm feeling it too. I don't cry a lot. I just don't. Right? And like, also, if I cry, I'm never letting somebody I don't know see me cry. I'm not letting most people in my life see me cry. I think everyone's different. It would depend on other placements in your birth chart, but not every Pisces is just walking around emoting, crying, and emotionally overreacting to everything that's happening. I think that is really an overreaction to people who are out of touch with their own feelings. That's my opinion.
Anytime we encounter water, we're going to have a lot of stereotypes that fucking suck because we have an inability to entertain the idea that emotions are more than a nuisance. Mm-hmm. And if you really want to have a good cry, have a Cancer bestie.
Okay, so right, this I think, if I may, I think this is the difference with Cancer Pisces that I see in you and myself. You will cry much easier. You're an easier cry.
I'm an easy cry.
I'm a harder cry, but let me tell you, it's gonna last a few days. Like, right? Like we're gonna be in this for a little while, and it's gonna be a big cry. Like I'm leaving work. I'm gonna go. It's gonna happen in the bathroom. I'm gonna wait 15 minutes. It's still not passed, and then I'm just gonna leave for the day, because that's it. Now I'm here. right? So it's the ocean versus the river. It's the hurricane, it's the flood. It's what is that? Oh my God, COVID and everything has made me so dumb. Is typhoon? Tsunami.
Yes, the
The
wave.
tidal wave.
Yes. Yes.
3 T words. The rats are really working hard in my brain right now to come up. They're like, I know it's a T word. Here's several that have to do with water. Uh, but it washes over you, and it is overwhelming. And so that's where I think it's not constant, but and it doesn't even have to be my feelings. It could be, I've had this happen with current events, like extremely tragic current events that I get wrapped into, where like it has nothing to do with me, but like I'm just going to be depressed for 2 days because a bunch of people got shot somewhere, and like you soak it in, and once it's there, the only thing to do is just fully process it until, just like the tides, another T water word, it all recedes and goes back out. And for people who don't experience emotion that way, I'm looking at air moons, for example, Gemini moons specifically. Like, you're going to process emotions very differently. So someone who's Pisces heavy is going to be like, holy shit. But it's not that they're crying and feeling things constantly or overly sensitive. They're just processing feelings differently than you. So different doesn't mean better or worse, just different.
Different, and kind of in this way that it will touch, right? So Jupiter, Pisces expansion, that will kind of like wash through and touch every piece of their life. Whereas not even, I don't mean in a psychologically damaging way, but a Cancer cry is going to be much more compartmentalized. If I'm crying about something with my son, I'm fine to show up to work. My son doesn't work with me.
Right.
So it's like these very contained transmute and move on. But as Wendy noted, it's happening like semi-daily.
Right. Whereas like the ocean, most days, it's really consistent. You know when the tide's coming in, it's consistent, it's routine. But when shit gets stirred up, I don't care that there's a city. I don't care, like, it's we're going down. I'm flooding your town. Get ready. Walls, levees, fuck that. We're going. And then eventually, it recedes, and then you're left with whatever's left.
New world.
That's right. Because now we have a new beginning. Transitions.
Yeah.
Everybody's dead. Let's restart. Oh, that's horrible. Well, I should be saying thoughts and prayers to all the flood victims. I'm very sensitive to that. I have done crying and depression binges on Hurricane Katrina recently. I shouldn't be so insensitive. But again, Pisces, Virgo, Divinity, everything's funny or nothing's funny. It's all the same. So, sorry.
We talked about irreverence specific to Gem and Sag, but it's also present in Virgo, Pisces.
Doesn't matter. We're all dying anyway.
Politician energy. Ooh, is that where you vortex? Okay.
I don't necessarily know. Richard Nixon. He is one of the Pisces politicians I'm aware of. Not Pisces heavy, but like Jupiter, mutable, all that kind of stuff. It is. I don't want to bring up toxic stuff, but I have known. I come from a very bad toxic family, and 2 of the worst people in my family are Pisces heavy, including my brother, who's a Pisces stellium. And yeah, they can really impress people and convince them that they're super normal, wonderful, best people that ever lived. But it's a facade, and it's because they're using that Pisces energy to understand what the other person wants to hear and wants to feel, and present that to them. So it can be used in wonderful ways politically. it can be used in damaging ways as well. But it is, I have a person, I mean, I've used it.
Yeah, the
Um,
charm, the charisma, it comes from this intuitive understanding of others. Like, of course, people are charmed by that.
Mhm. And if you have both the Pisces and the Virgo, then you have not just the ability to understand the other person's emotional needs, climate, vibe, and how you need to communicate with them. You also have the Virgo endurance to explain things and get into the process, right? So and answer all the questions and speak intelligently about it and communicate well. So those energies combined, I think if your intentions are good, it can make for a very good world leader. Hashtag WitchFoot for President 2024.
Yeah, we've never tried two at once. Why not now?
Right. I mean, we don't need a vice president if we're co-president, right?
No president.
If there's even, do we even still have a president? Is that even still a thing?
Unclear.
Is it going to be a thing? I don't know. I don't really care anymore. It's unimportant. Countries, governments, not important to me.
Nation states. Why are we doing this, folks? It's 2022. Come on
2022.
now.
But if they are operating on a healthy level, because Pisces is so concerned with the greater good and that CEO of consciousness energy, they can be great leaders. Virgos as well. A great Virgo leader person, not a politician, Mother Teresa. Pisces, Mr. Rogers. I mean,
servant leadership in both cases, right? It's which became like a huge buzzword when I was right out of college. Servant leaders as these people who modeled the best of us so that other people could rise to the occasion.
Servant leadership is one of my favorite terms. I'm writing that down right now. But that's exactly it. Okay. And I'm putting a heart over the I because it's beautiful. Okay. I also had two Pisces. I see this especially with Pisces Venus, the Pisces in general, really being categorized as like super romantic, lovey-dovey.
The idealism.
Yeah. And I think too, Pisces, they see how any two people could get along. And I'm one of those people who don't necessarily believe that there's one person who you're supposed to be with. I really see that it's your desire to make something work with another individual.
Yes, that your willingness meter is the determining factor.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very Piscean. So Pisces are romantic in the sense that they're willing to invest in relationships because connections are the whole thing of life. They have that bird's eye viewpoint on everything. Connections are what make the world go round, and they want to make connections with people and things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they need tons of romance. What a Pisces actually needs is a lot of alone time, which is not always compatible with hot and heavy romance. And I think a surprising thing when people get involved with Pisces heavy people, they think, all right, here, like I'm getting into this lovey-dovey, hearts and flowers, romantic, and then they're confused and the Pisces is like, yeah, but we just went on a date last week. I'm like, I'm in the middle of a book. If you want to talk about the book, fine, but like I don't want to go out again.
Right, because if Virgo is going to be unto themselves, you have to assume you're going to find that on the Pisces end of the spectrum as well. And if there is this sense of like being touched by all the inputs and the things around them and the people around them, there would be a natural fatigue that would arise. In overstimulation would be easier to affect into a Pisces.
Excuse me, I think too that's the signal of health or unhealth that I look for, maybe I don't want to say unhealth, health or maybe struggling in Virgo would be how much are you taking care of yourself versus other people, that balance. And in Pisces, it would be how much time are you spending with other people versus just yourself. Because a Pisces who's not doing so well is probably giving way too much of themselves to other people and not taking enough time to recalibrate with just themselves, because they absorb so much without really doing it intentionally from other people. It can be hard then to discern, what are my feelings, what are other people's feelings, what's my intuition versus how I'm just reacting. So they need that alone time to recalibrate, kind of reacquaint themselves with themselves. And if they don't get that routinely, then you do see that more, maybe a little bit chaotic, bigger emotional reactions,
Numbing.
Okay, this was Kurt Cobain's biggest problem, right? Like, I don't have enough time for myself. I'm not making music for myself anymore. I'm not making decisions for myself. Everybody's demanding things of me. So what do? You find peace and solitude and innerness the only way that you're able to in those circumstances. I'm not excusing his choices. He was an adult. And not all Pisces people choose that. But that was what was available to him, and that's how he chose to cope with it. So yeah, if you love a Pisces, give them encourage, even if they say they don't need it, encourage alone time.
Yeah, because it's confusing, because what's beautiful about Pisces and the way that they love is their availability to love, because that love is always, it's kind of like the most heart on the sleeve type of energy of the zodiac. And so it is a readily available love, and people can confuse that availability for a desire to be with. Just because you can tap into it doesn't mean they always want to be tapped into.
Right. They'll never turn you away, but sometimes, turn yourself away.
Turn yourself away. And Pisces, don't be afraid, right? Jupiter comes right before Saturn. Don't be afraid to lean out into Saturn's strength and go, no more, no more.
Lean out into Saturn's strength, or lean into the next. Look at the signs on either two sides of Pisces. Aqua, Aries. Lean into either one of those and don't give a fuck, dude. Yeah, it's Pisces' responsibility to do it. But yeah, you do see that those relationships with Pisces people where that the partner becomes very dependent. And you see it in Virgo too, where the partner becomes dependent on the Virgo's service. And in both of those scenarios, it can only last so long, because at some point that Pisces or Virgo partner is going to get worn out, and it's going to be your fault. So be careful. Both, everybody.
Be careful with yourselves, babies. Take good care.
Take good care. It's Taurus season now. Nourish.
A supportive sign to both energies, sextile to Pisces, trine to Virgo.
Yes.
Eat it up.
I love Taurus. I love them all. Do you have any more stereotypes? Because I have a pet theory I wanted to bring up.
No, because I mentioned the sexuality. So, and you already sang a Prince lyric. So no, continue.
We've already done Prince. We've already done sex. Okay. Okay, so my pet theory, I don't think it's correct, because I think you can be funny no matter what. Andrea's hilarious. She does not have a Pisces or Virgo Mercury. There are other hilarious people with all different kinds of Mercury signs: Capricorn, Leo, Cancer, all of them. But because I'm a Pisces Mercury, I'm biased, and I've looked into it. And I've Googled almost all of my favorite comedians every time I see them. And I keep finding Virgo Mercury, Pisces Mercury. And I'm not saying that they're the funniest people. I'm just saying they're extremely funny. And I think it has to do with their perspective, that divinity.
Their perspective, that's exactly the word I was going to say. Their view on life is so unique and powerful.
So I do have a short list that I would like to share of Virgo and Pisces Mercury comedians, in case people don't believe us. Bo Burnham, Jenny Slate, who we mentioned in a previous episode, Trevor Moore. Rest in motherfucking peace, bro. Like, let's pour one out for Trevor Moore. Jesus Christ. I can't believe he's gone. He's alive in my heart and will be. I dream about him. This is weird. We don't need to get into how weird it is with me and Trevor Moore. Okay. Eddie Murphy,
Ah,
Bernie Mac,
yep.
Steve Martin, John Mulaney. So we're also coming up with a theme here, right? Self-deprecating, sarcastic, hard-hitting. Like,
So wait, you just told me this morning, right? Mitch Hedberg is a Pisces sun.
yes, Aqua Mercury.
Only a Pisces sun would know that stairs in an escalator are equally useful.
Okay, we need to link some old Mitch Hedberg. I will also say that I think if I had to pick a number 3, like that I personally think is the most hilarious Mercury, I think you know what I'm going to say. Taurus.
Oh,
Taurus Mercury.
yes.
They only because of 2 examples. Dan Cummins, who we keep mentioning, and now after watching parts of the trial, Johnny Depp, who we always knew was funny, but now we really know is funny. Taurus Mercury's, guys, secretly hilarious.
But settle in because it's not a short conversation.
No.
Taurus Mercury. Settle in.
Yeah, that's the rub, guys. That's the rub. Okay, so that's a big difference, isn't it? Virgo and Pisces Mercury, they're giving you like that the zing, right? And like sometimes it's stuff where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe they said that. But
sometimes it goes by so fast that like you're laughing at it the next day when it like occurs to you what happened.
Yes. Or you're like, I never even thought of that. But yes. But no, Taurus Mercury, you're going on a you're going on a journey, dude.
Magic carpet ride.
Yeah, they're gonna be using words that have like 3 meanings and like
which they will explain to you.
Yep. And now I'm having like PTSD from being married to a Gemini Mercury too, right? Like, but they're also funny. They are all funny in different ways. I guess what I'm pointing out is this polarity specifically, the way that Virgo and Pisces see the world, see other people, see comedy. It's so big, but also so detailed. And it's just my favorite.
So my son is a Pisces Mercury, and he's 3 years old, and he's been struggling at daycare. And my husband puts him to bed at night, and he's trying to dig and figure out like what is behind. It could just be a growth spurt, right? Kids go through these, but he's trying to see if there's anything bothering him. And so he's trying to figure out like what's behind the hitting, the taking toys, the tantrums at school we're starting to hear about. So he's asking Bubs for his insider perspective on like what's behind all these, and Bubs goes, people like my husband is trying to get to the root cause, and Bubs is like, you put me in a room full of people, come on,
there's gonna be problems.
what do you expect? just cutting to the chase, like looking at the big picture, like people, man, what's a 3-year-old to do?
I think I have learned to love every single Mercury placement in their own way, except maybe Sag Mercury. That takes a little bit.
Favorite.
No hate to Sag Mercury, but for all the Sag third houses, sorry, all the Sag Mercuries in the world, this isn't your episode, but just you don't know everything. You can't tell people. That's just all there is.
Another small tangent, Sag Mercury. So we're watching Zootopia, and there's this part where one of the characters goes, "It's in my dunna," and his friend goes, "I'm pretty sure that's pronounced DNA," and he goes, "Don't tell me what I know."
That's the one. That's the thing. That's the thing. Because you cannot tell a Sag Mercury anything. They will say as much. Can't tell me nothing. And it's like, because they have to experience it. And I'm like, bitch, I experienced it. That should be enough for you. I've loved people. I do love people with these placements, but like, there are just some times where I'm like, you know what? I'm dropping it. I'm dropping it. Like, cause we're just going to
Like,
rage
it's
in a
hot.
minute. Yeah. And I think too, air and fire Mercuries in general, me as a Pisces Mercury, I do struggle with, just because it's either like, one, where the fuck are we going with this? Or two, slow down. Whoa, that's a lot of communication. Okay. A lot all the time.
I got you, babies.
It is good. So to this point, different, not better or worse. I have heard lots of negative feedback on my Pisces Mercury, including, I have no idea what you're talking about. What even does that mean? That's not a word. Lots of things like this, or like you're saying,
Bats aren't birds.
bats are birds. Okay, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna fucking talk about this, and I'm writing it down because we're putting something in a show notes. I may even do a blog post just on this. Listen. Okay. My Gemini Mercury husband hates this. This is one of our biggest ongoing arguments, and yeah. I won't back down because, okay, I appreciate and respect the scientific classification of animals kingdom shit. Okay, I get it. But like, the animals were the animals before we put them in a classification system, right? How did they get in a classification system? They didn't like form it themselves. Bats didn't get up and say like, hey, I got titties, I'm a mammal. They like some guy, some group of men, probably white men, doesn't matter, that's what my husband would say, that doesn't matter. Okay, fine. So a group of people, a person or group of people, formulated the system of classifying animals to organize it. Fine, wonderful, that's great. But I'm also a person with a brain, and for me, I feel like you're a bird if you fly. And bats fucking fly. So bats are birds. The egg laying thing, I'm not concerned about, because reptiles lay eggs. I don't give a shit about that. The milk making thing, I get that that's what mammal means, but I'm not the one who used the word mammal. I can use, right? Like, you can use whatever you want. You can classify animals into groupings however it fucking makes sense to you.
You could do it by color. You could do it by size.
Where they live.
Texture. Their favorite foods.
If I'm completing a biology test, I understand that the correct answer for the man is that bats are mammals. But I see a bat, and that's a fucking bird, okay? And in case you have follow-up questions such as, well, Wendy, penguins don't fly. Are they still birds? No, they're kind of more like a fish, bro. But I'm not as hardcore. Because they still have wings and they still have hollow bones. Bats have wings and hollow bones. Why did we pick the milk and the titties as the difference between birds and everything else? Or mammals and everything, right? Like, why was that the one? Because that was what that guy picked. Okay, fine. I sound like a crazy person. That's okay. But for me, bats are birds. So
I think the reminder here is like, we don't need the man's taxonomy or any other. If you didn't sign up for it, you don't have to use it.
You don't have to use it. It's as useful as and it changes. Things like that change. If it's just something that a person decided on, it changes over time.
Like Pluto being a planet, not a planet. Yes, a planet, not a planet. Astral body. What is it?
It changes. So I am just saying that I am so evolved, I don't have to hold myself to rigid points of view that somebody had hundreds of years ago. So fuck all of you who would yell at me because bats are mammals. I don't care. I have an
Preach.
Aries Jupiter. I don't give a shit.
Come at me, bro.
Come at me. And an Aqua Venus. So like the more people tell me bats can't be birds, the more dedicated I am to believing that bats are birds. So it's a futile
Well, make
effort.
her day, folks. Make her day.
Hey, is Make My Day, is that Bruce Willis? No, Make My Day. No, that's Clint Eastwood. That's Clint Eastwood.
Yes. Yeah.
Bruce is another, he's my birthday buddy. I feel for him. He's going through his health issues right now.
Leo Kaye.
Oh my God. I do love me a Bruce Willis. Well, I think that's a wrap on the Virgo episode. I didn't know we were going to end with bats or birds, but I gotta say, that's really fitting.
Might be our most authentic ending yet. And I hope you guys appreciate the poetry and beauty of us ending on Virgo Pisces for our polarity series. Okay, I'm just going to let y'all put those pieces together.
Yeah, so to wrap up as well, we had Aries, Libra, integrity, Taurus and Scorpio, security, Gemini, Sag, curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we switched that one the most.
We did.
Leo, Aqua, identity.
Cancer, Cap, legacy.
Oh, I skipped right over them as if I don't love them. And then yeah, Virgo and Pisces, divinity. The fun thing with these is you then start to have relationships between, for example, we talked about Taurus, being sextile to Pisces and supportive, security and divinity, trying to Virgo, divinity. I think what's most interesting when you start looking at these as the crosses, the squares. So like Virgo and Pisces with Gemini, Sag, curiosity and divinity. The more curious we are, the more we explore and the more we learn, the more it teaches us about who we are and the greater meaning of life and our purpose. A lot of fun ways we can play. We're maybe going to talk more about those fun theories and different ways that we group the signs and energies. More to come.
Absolutely. And how to read yourself through them. Yeah, so we'll be talking more about that. Yeah.
So Virgo, Pisces, we love you.
Big love.
So weird and cool.
Keep on making us laugh. Keep the world beautiful. Thank you.
And check out the show notes also for a good laugh.
Hell yeah.
In the meantime, find out who you are.
And do it on purpose.
I'm a Pisces. And if you're watching the YouTube video, you can see my cup.
Gorgeous.
Mwah.